And welcome to Mind Shifters Radio, the second hour. And today is Friday, April the 11th, 2025. And we thank you for joining us. And Mike will be with us here momentarily. Let me just add that a newsletter will be coming out probably by the end of today, so be sure and watch your email. If you're not on our contact list, you can go to our website, and down at the very bottom, there is a sign in to be on our mailing list. If you would click that and put in your information, then you will get the newsletter when we send it out. And the main topic on it is that there is a intensive coming up from May the 23rd to May the 31st. It's a 9-day why, and that includes your accommodations, your meals, and the workshop materials. And there's going to be a deadline for people to sign up by 2 weeks prior to that. And so if you're interested, or you have told us that you're interested in coming to that, then please let us know. You need to be registered 2 weeks in advance. And you can also call Michael or me, or you can email me at Jeanie, Jeanie, at whyagain.org, and let us know your intentions. And finally got caught up on the radio show. We've had the babies for the last 3 days, and it's been really preoccupied. But if you go to the website under the archives for April, there are the summaries for all this week. Also the links to the YouTube channel where you can pick up the recordings, or the link to our Podatize player, which has all of the archives. But if you go to our YouTube channel, especially if you're wanting a particular topic, you know, at the top of our website, I'm trying to multitask and do that at the same time here. There is the link that you can click at the very top towards the right that takes you directly to our YouTube channel. And you can search, you can either look at the videos and search by day, or there's a thing called playlists. And if you click on that, then it lists them by topics. And so, for instance, the ones that Michael had been doing this week on the Power Person, they're all located in one place. So you can look up the playlist for Power Person and go to that. When he finishes with the pseudo solutions, we will be putting that list on our website. Like right now, if you click on whyagain.org and go to Start Here, scroll down a little bit. First is the instructional videos on how to navigate both the website and the app if you're not familiar with it. But if you scroll on down to other worksheets, then that's where you find things like the apology tool, the Beatitudes, the commitments, emotional release exercise, love exchange exercise, personal code, physiological effects of emotional suppression. There's all kinds of posters and information that you can just do a single click. Right now, if you click on the pseudo solutions, you'll find well, I've actually got 12. I think Michael now has 13. He's editing as he goes. So we'll have the completed one. But if you clicked on the Power Person worksheet, the one that's on the website, it'll open as a PDF. And it's actually just it's 2 pages. And it's just really simple. But then during the codependence intensives that we did online in 2020 and 2021, that grew to 14 pages. And so we will have that one online as soon as he completes during the radio shows. So stay tuned for that. And you'll be able to pick that up under the other worksheets. So I'll see if Michael is ready, and I will turn this over to him. Hope you all have a great day, and we'll talk to you again. He is ready to rock and roll, so I'm going to hand it over to him. And we do have a comment. Oh, it's Susan saying, hello, Jeanie. Hi, Susan. Good to see you. And I'm going to turn this over to Michael. Do you want to use my headset?
Oh, you're going there? Okay. I can let mine go. Awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, welcome. And I sent that to Jeanie if you want to go ahead and it's still rough, but if you want to go ahead and put it on the website, anybody can download it while we're doing the show if they'd like. Cool, awesome. So welcome everybody. I've been working on integrating updates and edits into the Power Person worksheet we've been doing. So I just sent it to Jeanie and to Dr. Tim, so they've got copies of it. And so Jeanie's going to go ahead and put it on the website. And I assume she'll let me know when she gets it on the website and we can tell you where you can find it. Beyond that, if anyone has a thought, a question, a comment, before I jump into that topic, if you want to put your hand up and say hello, if you've got something on your mind, a comment to pop into the accepted the clapping. Yen, delighted that you're here. We've gotten into the topic of the codependence to interdependence work that we do and looking at what we define as a power person. And it's our most extensive worksheet to date. It actually, as of today, is now 15 pages long, or all of our other worksheets are limited to pretty much 1 page. This is one that it's really at the core of everything that those who are functioning out of false images in their minds that are functioning as non-humans need to break down. It's the root of what we call multiple personality disorder. The energetic patterns behind the power person are the root of every disease of humanity, bar none. And the aberrant behaviors on the planet that leave us in conflict and things like divorce and war and starvation and everything that that the world would call insane is a result of this power person dynamic being moved from generation to generation. So what we did, actually, we did 2 back-to-back online codependence and to interdependence intensives on Zoom, which means we have about 90 hours of work available for anyone who at home wants to take the work to the next level. That intensive is available for purchase. And by the way, if you're planning on, we're working on, and probably before the end of the day, we'll get a newsletter out. We're working on a flyer for the Why Is This Happening to Me Again intensive that's going to happen at the end of May. And we've decided we're going to make it kind of one of those things that, you know, an offer you can't refuse. So if you're planning to, or you're wanting to upgrade your work and thinking about joining us for the Why Is This Happening to Me Again intensive that will begin, I believe it's the 23rd of May, it may be the 22nd of May, and go through the 31st. That'll be a 9-day Why Is This Happening to Me Again intensive residential here in Abingdon, Virginia. Yorate, who you've heard on the show in the past, who did our online food program and did the last intensive or 2 since Ari passed away, is going to be doing the food, and she's going to be introducing a program called the Nutritarian Dietary Program, and it's pretty powerful, created by an MD. So we're working on putting together a flyer they're going to be sending out, and if you choose to participate in that intensive, you can actually start tomorrow to work toward the intensive, because we're going to include free the codependence to interdependence online intensive, that 90-hour program. It's a self-study program that normally costs $600. If you register for May, that'll be included free. And we're also going to include a full set of links to all of our DVD downloads. And I think, I'm not even sure exactly how many we've got at this point, 15, something like that. So that's another about $300 in value that will come along with the Why Is This Happening to Me Again intensive. We'll do the end of May. That intensive will include, of course, the workshop, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? The core work on forgiveness. It'll include healing through relationships. It will include purpose, personal power, and commitment, empowered to heal, mind shifters, hands-on energy field work, and still point breathing. That's all part of that intensive. And this the total program will be 9 days. It'll start on Friday, I think it's the 23rd of May. I don't have my calendar in front of me. And then we'll go through a week the following Saturday. So it'll be residential, the wonderful retreat center called Jubilee House in Abingdon, Virginia, about 20 minutes from our house. So that's where we're going to be doing that. And it looks like, we haven't finalized it, but it looks like we're going to be able to. We've had a couple of people who asked if we would do the intuitive development intensive back to back with that 9-day Y. And the intuitive development is normally done in a 9-day format. However, the facility is not available for 9 days. It is available for 8 days. So we're going to, if enough people are interested in doing that intuitive development practicum, we'll be doing that in an 8-day format. We'll cut 1 day off of it, which isn't going to be a big deal, and proportionally the cost will be just, a day less. And so it looks like if we have enough people who want to follow through, we had a couple of people who at our Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing Club a week or two ago that wanted to add that one to the process. So we'll see how it all comes together. We'll be getting a flyer up probably by the end of the day, if not by the end of the weekend. And so that's what's happening here. And let's see, we've got a few comments. So hello from Yin. And Jeanie is on another phone. May, yeah, okay, so she put the dates in. It is May 23rd to 31st. Will be the 9-day Why Is This Happening to Me Again? Residential here in Virginia. If you are thinking about doing the 8-day, you could do it separately. You don't have to do the 9-day to do the 8-day intuitive development. It will start on Saturday, the evening of Saturday, the 31st of May, and go through to the following Friday, I believe it is. So that's kind of the plan, and we may or may not stick to it. We'll see how things unfold. All things moving forward, lots on the plate. And so delighted that you're with us, and we're going to step into the next level of looking at the Power Person worksheet. And let me catch up with the notes. I've been totally focused on trying to get this ready so we could at least publish a reasonable. It's still a bit of a rough draft because I've made several adjustments in the Power Person worksheet, but Jeanie's going to go ahead and put that online. And so let me catch up with my notes here. So the next step in looking at the Power Person worksheet is to look at addictions, what kind of things we use as addictive processes. And in this work, we define addiction as the compulsive use of any person, place, circumstance, substance, situation, or activity to achieve 2 goals. 1, to avoid listening to our highest guidance, and 2, to keep from feeling or dealing with stress or mind energy emotions inside of us that do not come from love. So avoiding the truth or not looking at what's going on inside of us. And, addictive behaviors tend to dull awareness of or shut down contact with thought disorders. One of the most important things you can do if you're actually going to heal is have your mind bright and capable and on track when a thought disorder starts to move so that you can spot it and deal with it. If one dulls awareness down, and how many addictions are there? A lot of people, they're so loaded with thought disorders, and every thought disorder creates physiological, psychological pain. And so what do people do when they're in pain? They anesthetize themselves. Don't make me feel. I don't want to feel this. And so when you dull awareness of or shut down contact with your thought disorders, then your thought disorders are perpetuated. You can't change them if you can't be aware of them. I mentioned the other day the name of a book out there that and Dawn had put the name in the notes the other day, but I don't remember who it was offhand. But thoughts buried alive never die. A thought disorder, a peace of mind. Remember the opening words in the book of John do not say in the beginning was the Word and the Word became flesh. What they say is in the beginning was the mind energy and the mind energy became flesh. When you put mind energy into your structure, what they're showing in the cell biologist laboratory is that mind energy literally turns into a neuropeptide, a molecule in the so-called body, on the level at which we see the energy of the body as something physical, which of course it's not, but energy, then something that was not present all of a sudden appears, a molecule called a neuropeptide. And what that neuropeptide does is it circulates around in the structure until it finds a cell with a receptor site that matches. It lands on the receptor site and inserts itself in the cell. If we were sitting inside the cell watching this neuropeptide, this thought, literally this thought, land on the receptor site of the cell and watched it inserting itself, what we would see coming into the cell is what we call chemistry. The moment at which aberrant chemistry, thought disorder, hits the cell says, ouch, that's our emotions. That's our warning signal. And if you dull that, you won't be aware of what you're doing to yourself, which means you can keep doing the same old stuff. And of course, most people keep doing the same old stuff and hoping for a different result. I think that was Einstein's definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, but and thinking the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result is an even deeper level of that insanity. So if one uses behaviors or substances addictively in order to shut down contact with their thought disorders, then they're going to be locked into those thought disorders. What we're looking to do, remember when we started out with this worksheet, very top title, to become the thinker apart from the thought, the feeler apart from the feelings, the actor apart from the actions. To be able to become aware of what's going on in your structure and to remove. Okay, thank you for changing the numbering, sweetheart. Jeanie just put a note in that there's the numbering was off in the piece that I sent her. And thanks again, Don. Feeling Spirit Alive Never Die by Carol Truman. And Susan says, in AA, we're told once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. What do you say? I say once that you are in pain and you want to anesthetize yourself from that pain, whether you're a potaholic, an alcoholic, a sexaholic, a rageaholic, then as long as that's there, the tendency will be, when that pain starts to move, to addictively move toward that substance. Once you remove what never belonged, then once you move the pain that motivates the addiction, then the addiction disappears, would be my offering. And of course, you know, if you go into virtually every program that's out there, every psychological story, every religious story, every psychiatrist story about forgiveness, it's always about forgiving them. So if I let you off the hook for the pain that's inside of me, I've done nothing to change the pain that's inside of me. And if that starts to move again, and I'm an addictive type person, i.e., I want to avoid my pain, then when that pain starts to move, I'm going to demand my addiction. I'm going to want to anesthetize it. You know, and alcohol, one of the first things that alcohol does when it gets into the brain is it shuts down the inhibiting system. And, you know, the brain has a double inhibiting system. This is an interesting thing, you know, that when you really start to understand the mechanics of how the mind works, and, you know, it's like understanding the way your car works. You're not going to get very far if you don't know anything about how your car works. If you don't know where the key goes, if you don't know how the brakes work, if you don't know how the gas works, if you don't know where to put the gas, you're going to have trouble getting anywhere. So there's a double inhibiting system in the human mind. What's a double inhibiting system? Truck is running on down the road, and if you hit the brakes, then the brakes apply a pressure to a pad, and the friction of that stops the truck. What happens if the power goes out on the truck? Uh-oh, you can't operate your brakes. Well, the brake system on your truck has a double inhibiting system. It's a metaphor for understanding how the mind works. So if a truck is running down the highway, pardon me, if a truck is in neutral on a hill, but it's not started, it won't move. If you start the truck and you don't apply the brakes, and it will tend to start to move because the the brakes on, or pardon me, it won't move because the brakes on a car or a truck are always on. So the brakes on the truck inhibit the movement of the truck. In order to move the truck, what has to happen is you have to inhibit the inhibitor. Brakes are always on a truck. You know, why have you ever stopped at a truck stop and here's this truck driver that's gone in, he's going to sleep for 2 hours, he's going to take a shower, and he's going to eat, and he left his truck running, and he complains about the price of gas. What's wrong with this guy? Why doesn't he just shut his darn truck down? Because if he shuts his truck down, when he comes back out, it's going to cost him more to be able to get back on the road. Michael, what are you talking about? Why is that? Well, you remember there's a thing called air pressure in a truck. And once you shut a truck down and the air pressure's gone, the brakes are locked on the truck, inhibiting the movement of the truck. So there's the inhibitor motion in the truck, keeps the truck from going anywhere. When the driver gets back in the truck, he has to start. He can't just drive away like you can with your car. He has to build up air pressure. And what happens is once his air pressure's up, then the brakes are inhibited. In other words, there are strong springs that hold the brakes on the truck brake system all the time. They're on until you have enough air pressure to inhibit that, to pull those springs back, which takes the brakes off, and now the truck can move. So the brain works in exactly the same way. Everything that you were ever told, don't you dare do that, never do that, no, it's bad, that's evil, that's wrong. If nobody ever taught you how to forgive those dynamics, all of those energetic dynamics are in your mind. And what's the first thing that goes with alcohol? Inhibition. Everything you were told not to do is inhibited in your mind. Alcohol knocks out the inhibitor. That's why people do such crazy, bizarre things when they're using alcohol. Things they would never normally do because those things are inhibited in them. If I let somebody else off the hook for what's pained in me, I've done nothing to change what's pained in me. So yes, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic, if you're playing the game of forgiving them. Once you apply actual forgiveness and you go inside yourself and you start to access all of those things that have been inhibited, what do we call things inhibited in the mind? We call them the unconscious. Remember Carl Jung says, until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will run your life. In the truck, it's just a set of mechanical brakes. In the mind, it's a set of energetic patterns. And those energetic patterns inhibited are still energetically in motion within us and creating effects. So once you start to do actual forgiveness, you stop, you forget about ever letting anybody out there off the hook ever again, and you recognize that if there is pain or trauma within you, your work, you may pardon someone who shows you that, but your work is to go inside your own mind, find that which you've hidden from yourself, that which you've inhibited, and clean it up. Forgive it, remove it. And the genius of this man Yeshua 2,000 years ago, knowing precisely how to show people how to access their own unconscious dynamics is just monumental. But the things we've inhibited, the things we haven't wanted to look at, are the things that are not Dr. Feelgood. And we've inherited these inhibited energies from generation upon generation upon generation. You look at the ancient scriptures and they say, look to the lives of the fathers, for ours are but a shadow of theirs upon the earth. We're playing out the dynamics unresolved of the previous generations. Powerful statement from Carl Jung. One of the greatest burdens for the human being is the unlived lives of their parents, these generational patterns. So what we're looking to do is to access and undo the things that we've used addictively. So there are, in the worksheet, there's a list you can just go through and check off. Take a look. And by the way, if you find any of any dynamics that we've missed, please drop us a note so that I can include it in the sheet. So you want to do, there are three things we suggest that you do. And I just got partway through this list yesterday, I believe, if I'm on track here. And so I'm going to start from the top and just go through the whole thing. So wherever there's a box beside each of these perhaps addictive behaviors. So, just there's a check mark. Fill in the check mark for any behaviors that you deem in your life to be addiction. And then circle to any of them that you see that you've seen your power person do, put a circle around them so you distinguish it from things you've done. And then underline any behaviors that your partner says that you do. This can be a big clue in starting to become aware of what's going on. So, what are some of the things that we tend to do addictively? One, deny, blame, dissociate, and project. You made me mad, you made me sad, you made me angry. That means I've dissociated from the content of my own mind. I've now put an inhibitor on this information, and this information, because I put an inhibitor on it is now more strongly energized and therefore will tend to produce more pronounced resonances in my life and pull people in to play it out with me. What are some of the other things that one might do, or they've observed others doing, or they are addicted to? Yelling, screaming, using the voice. Be cute, be coy, create distractions, gaslight, lie, be insincere, deceptive, false religiosity, criticism of self or others, degrading self or others. To be covert, that is to convey a different message with one's voice tone than the one that's being sent with words. Leave, escape, run away. Going numb is a way to leave, escape, and run away. So just numbing oneself, that's one of the things that drugs tend to do. Greed, becoming self-absorbed. False pride, turn to entertainment, the need to be right, make excuses. Avoid emotions by staying in one's head, intellectualizing, unwilling to look within. Dish out one's daily dose of disapproval, just like your power person did to you, to either yourself or to others, to be unfair or unkind. Envy, cheating, attack, destroy, get even, vengeance, theft, stealing. OCD, it's called an obsessive-compulsive disorder, which, if you do forgiveness work around it, will become an OCB, obsessive-compulsive blessing. The thing that was a disorder yesterday, when forgiveness is applied, that can then become a strength and become a blessing in your life. Next one is defensiveness in our list, taking a position, puffing oneself up, rage, threaten, pressure, intimidate, use sarcasm, become controlling, tantrums, go silent, withdraw, run, hide. All of these are ways to cover pain. Become abusive physically, emotionally, verbally, become boisterous, punish or harm others or self, fantasizing punishment or harm, becoming a pleaser, self-terrorizing thoughts, terrorizing others with thoughts, words, or actions, judge self, judge others, make up stories or lies about others or self in order to block truth. One of the things that happens is that of calling one's mind's lies truth. And because there's only a limited space for perception to show up, when you call a lie the truth, you're now living in blockage of truth, and there's not room for the truth to come forward there. And Susan's got her hand up. So Susan, we're going to get into something hopefully that relates to our power person dynamic here. So welcome, young lady. What's on your mind? Did that fit with your thought about the AA thing about once an addict, always an addict, or once addicted,
You hear me
always?
all right?
You're loud and clear.
Oh, good. You said about OCD becoming OCB, and maybe you don't
Right.
want to go into how that could happen. So at some point, I'd love to hear more about that.
Yes, when you apply, when the OCD, it's called a disorder because it's something that's compulsive and something that runs people.
Right.
When you apply forgiveness, the obsessive component of that same thing, it's like everything that drives behavior via the level of energy it fires at in the mind. When one applies forgiveness to what is at one point OCD, literally each time, and you heard me describe forgiveness before as it's like shaving off a layer of the energy, a layer of the impetus behind that particular energetic dynamic in the mind. So once you take something that was considered to be a disorder and you shave enough energy off of it, there's still the inclination toward that behavior, but now you're at choice over it. So the inclination, like for instance, a person with OCD, Jeanie oftentimes labels herself as OCD, or used to. She doesn't do that anymore, I don't think. I haven't heard her do it in a long time anyway. But when she started to work with forgiveness, she recognizes that still, like one of her greatest skills is getting things done.
Mm-hmm.
And she still
I see.
does it. But
Yeah.
in the middle of it, she can say, I think I'm going to take time and go do an absence and take care of myself for an hour instead of, I got to do it, got to do it, got to do it.
Yeah.
So she's taken that, what used to be compulsive, I have to get it done, brought it into control. And now, she's still, that's strong, I'm going to get it done. But it isn't something that drives her anymore.
That's a wonderful example with my grandson Charlie, who is in a terrible amount of pain with OCD. And when you mentioned the amount of energy that's present in this, it is astounding how
Oh,
much
yes.
energy is there. And I haven't known what to say to him except, oh, I know it must hurt terribly. I'm so sorry. I mean, uh, so
Well, you know, if you think of the forgiveness process, think about, some of the things that you've worked through in your life.
mm,
And let's take any given issue. We don't have to pick one, but just pick one in your own mind, an issue that used to be a problem and a bother for you.
hmm
And when you set a goal related to that issue, the trauma or the pain behind that in the mind would come up, fire, and take over your life, became a
right,
problem. You,
totally.
you began to, so let's say that that energy around that particular issue was firing at a 10, and you
hmm
started to do worksheets around it, and it moved to the point where it started to fire at a 9, and you
mm
did more work around it, and the energetic level of it firing moved to an 8, a 7, a 6, a 5, until it comes to the point where Oh, well, I recognize this is here. Oh, this is an old friend that used to be an horrific enemy. Each time you apply what I see with the forgiveness process, as Yeshua taught it, is each time you apply it, it weakens the energetic pattern stored in those brain cells that kick in the automatic decision system to force us into that emotion or that behavior. And so each time you apply forgiveness, it's shaving off some of that energy. So if you can get that young man to pick, and of course, if you can pick something that's not a mega major issue for him, but one of the smaller things that he can see, it bugs him, but it's not, something that drives him to unconsciousness, and teach him how to cancel the goal, stand as a
Yeah.
space of love, and bring that underlying dynamic forward in the presence of love. Shave off a layer of it, shave off a layer of it. And if he'll enter into that practice, he'll come to the point where he'll eradicate his OCD totally, would be my offer.
Good. It's great to be reminded that there is a gift, there is a plus in the OCD or in any other thing. Like with Jeannie's gift for getting things done, there it is. But it no longer torments her, I hope, Jeanie. She can just get things done or say, nope, that's too much, I'm leaving, and not suffer by making that decision. That's a lovely idea.
Jeanie, why don't you put your hand up and share what your thoughts are about that? Would you? Your input would be great. Here's Jeanie. Hey, young
And we'll
lady.
try it one more time. Can you hear me this time?
You're good. You're
Yeah.
on.
Awesome.
Yep.
It still drives me at times. It's like, if I have something like, just for instance, Michael sent me the 15-page new expanded Power Person worksheet and said, go ahead and get it on the website. So I'm sitting here trying to get it on the website. Michael, it won't let me edit the PDF for some reason. So you'll have to make that change and send it
Okay,
to me
I'll make it.
again.
That's cool.
A
But
living example.
but I knew I already had a page on the website called Pseudo Solutions where I had them listed. So I went out there and I added the 2 new ones that he had come up with, because I only had 13 and now it's got 15, but the numbering is off on it, so it wouldn't let me change it on the PDF. But anyway, I do already have it. If you go to Start Here, I've already created the link that will take you to it once I get it online. So, I mean, it still drives me. Michael will ask me to do something, and it's kind of like he frames a goal for me. He doesn't mean to, but he wants me to do something, and I frame it. And so then it drives me until I get it done. And,
Yeah.
occasionally I'll say, well, it's going to be tomorrow before I get that done. Just like it took me till last night to catch up on Monday through Thursday radio shows for us and Dr. Tim to get them on
I
YouTube.
can't believe you did all that, Jeanie.
So it's like, but I had the babies, so they were, I was busy with them. They had my full attention. So the radio show wasn't my top priority, but it still was in the back of my mind. I need to get that current, because every day that I get behind, it takes me that much longer to catch up. So it's like I've got to stay ahead of it. And it does drive me. And yes, there are times like, I had one uploading last night and it said it was going to take 20 minutes. So I went in and sat on the bed, put my hand in the Avison for 20 minutes. And, instead of sitting here staring at the computer waiting for it to hurry and
Oh,
finish.
God.
And the
So,
day before yesterday, she had set herself a goal after working most of the morning in the garden. She was going to go out and do another layer of it. And I invited her to take a breath. And instead of doing that, go put her hand in the house and take care of herself, which she easily did. So,
Good.
moving in the
Good.
right direction.
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Well, Michael, my mind is exploding with what you're reading, but I'll bring it up later after you're finished with your program here, because you've got a lot going and you have an intention with this series. So I'm going to get off the phone and carry on.
Okay, well, I'll look forward to the next issue coming up.
Okay.
All right, appreciate you. Blessings.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, and I'm just looking. Let's see, we've got a comment. Melissa, the more I listen to you talk about power person and look within, I'm feeling perhaps over the years I've turned myself into my worst enemy. Big, horrible power person of my own combination of all the power people who've been in my life in the last 60 years. And that's what happens. Some good, some bad. Again, you know, my take is what Jung, way back when he was writing, he didn't describe, at least anywhere I know of. One fellow that I did a quantum still point with had been trained in Jungian analysis, and after the quantum still point, he said this is the piece that's missing from Carl Jung's work. But what Carl Jung is describing when he says until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will run our lives, and we'll call it fate. And that's literally what he's talking about, is the power person dynamic. So now we've got an understanding of what it is and how to dismantle it. And the tool of forgiveness, again, the ability to recognize that everything that the mind prompts us to do a behavior about, it prompts us to do a behavior because we have a goal around that issue. Now, we're going to cover this as the sheet unfolds, but we'll repeat it here. When I set a goal, I create a stress. When I create a stress, the functioning purpose of my mind is to show me how to achieve that goal. It's a wonderful thing. And there are only two ways to get rid of the stress. I either have to achieve the goal or I have to cancel it. And so to recognize that if I'm becoming overstressed, what I need to do is cancel the goal that's driving my mind in order to alleviate my stress. Otherwise, I'll drive myself crazy having to achieve the goal. That's OCD. And so recognizing that, and then you take it to the next level. And if I set a goal and that goal resonates something pained in me, and my goal is for someone else, then I'll use that goal to recruit that pain content in me. And I'll literally build a picture of them in my mind out of my pained content. And I'm sure that it must be their problem because, after all, I have this whole visual image about how it's all about them. So, yeah, when you start, well, and so then Melissa ends up with the question, with that 14-page worksheet, should I start with myself or all of those people in the past? Well, the worksheet itself will guide you. You can have many different power persons, uh, one in each area of behavior of your life. And so any given arena that you're ready to work on, let's say I'm thinking about, gee, I have to handle the stuff at the bank and I'm stressing. I'm in, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I'm going to stop and go, well, what's this about? Why is there this jangle of energy going on in my physiology? Oh, I start to see that around money, my power person used to go nuts. In fact, used to rage about money. So there, I'd start to do the worksheet around that. So that would be the name of the person I'm doing this power person worksheet on. And you can start to unfold and work in every arena of your life where you have a power person. And as you start to move through those things, you start to undo them. And remember that it's a process, that it's not something that has to be finished in this particular instant. And as you are gentle with yourself, you let loose of the need to play out that power person dynamic. And I'm a little bit distracted here. I'm just working to find a particular place in my notes on the power person dynamic here. So give me just a second. Just one second here. My page jumped and I've got to get back to it. Okay, I'm back. So that OCD becomes OCB when you begin to do the work of healing. What are some of the other things that can be addictions? And this is a list that we've got on the sheet. You can just go through and you can check off. Check where you see yourself doing it. Circle it where you've seen someone else do it. Underline it where your partner's told you that you do it. And of course, you don't believe you do it, but you'll find out that probably they're giving you some information that'll be useful. One of the tricks. This is a good thing to be aware of, and I actually need to make a note to put this into the worksheet, because one of the tricks of the mind is that when I'm driven to do the behavior that my power person did to me that I hated most, I don't categorize what they did to me in the same way as I categorize it when I do it to someone else. Period. I just, imagine, my power person was verbally abusive with me. So when I think about my power person doing that verbal abuse, the tendency is going to be, oh, look what they did to me, and they were so abusive. Under stress, remember, third level of behavior, ultra stressed, and I'll do what my power person did to me that I hate the most. But when I turn to someone and become verbally abusive, I won't call it being verbally abusive. I'll say, well, I'm just, I just need to motivate you to get things done. So it doesn't look like the same reality, but when you really do it, you look at this list and you start seeing it. Click. It starts to make sense. You see how it fits. So some of the other aspects of this are to puff self up, to rage, to threaten, to pressure, to intimidate, to use sarcasm. And sarcasm is our culture's socially acceptable way of expressing otherwise unexpressible rage. So what do you find yourself becoming controlling, having tantrums, going silent, withdrawal, run, hide, become physically, emotionally, verbally abusive, boisterous, punish, harm others or self. Again, fantasize punishing or harming others or self. Self-terrorizing thoughts, terrorize others with thoughts, words, and actions, judgment of self or others, make up stories or lies, block truth, never apologize. It's like, that's a big one. You see a lot of people playing that game. Violence, either thought, behavior, or quote unquote entertainment, being attracted to violence. And again, we're looking at things that can potentially be addictive, and they're behaviors that come from hostility and or fear. And so you want to be applying forgiveness if you find yourself engaging in them. So never owning or admitting the truth, to give in, to give up, to take the easy way, an addiction to never showing weakness, i.e., we're seeing lots of this toxic masculinity in the culture where you got to be a real man, and boy, to be a real man you got to be able to beat people up and not be bothered by it at all. It's like, yep, really, that's what a man is. Interesting. I thought that's what a coward and a weakling was, somebody who doesn't have the power or the strength. Actually, there's a confusion there. The person who thinks to be a real man you have to be gruff and abusive with somebody, that's someone who's mixed up power and strength. Strength is not power. Those who use strength to win usually are those who are weakest. Real power doesn't come from being able to overpower. You even look at the word overpower someone. So the ability to be vulnerable comes into play here. Rage, how often do people use food as an addiction? Sugar, alcohol, legal drugs, illegal drugs, busyness to keep from looking at themselves. Exercising can become an addiction. Spending, shopping, sex, promiscuity, pornography, seduction. Reading can become an addiction. Criminality, laziness, games, TV, electronics. A lot of kids are getting addicted to their electronics today, I think. Social media, violence, telling my story. I've had people over the years when I said, one of the introductions I'll do in an intensive is, something, I want you to know up front that I am not the least bit interested in your story. We've got 50 people in the room here at this intensive, and if we started and everybody told their story, we could do a 9-day intensive and never do anything else but hear everybody's story. There are a million stories in the naked city, and some people are addicted to telling their story. And I've had people who, just walked away from this work because I wouldn't listen to their story. It's like, wait a minute, you just hired me to do a private session with you. You're paying me $150 an hour, and you are upset because I won't let you keep telling me your story? What I want to do is get you into doing your work. Well, okay, but I'm not going to let you pay me to just listen to your story. I mean, that'd be easy for me, but it isn't going to get you anywhere. But some people become addicted to telling their story. Irritation, just being in that irritated state is another uh, result that comes from dissociated mind energy. Spiritual rituals can become an addiction. Criticism of self or others, excessive cleaning, meditation. People oftentimes use meditation to rise above an issue, and that becomes a spiritual bypass instead of dealing with an issue. It's like, oh, I'll just home myself until I can forget about it rather than dealing with it. Frustration, gossip, complaining. Again, this is a list that we're inviting you to determine. Did your power person do this? Do you do this? Have you been told that you do this? Then you want to just, each time you do the worksheet, is mark out what's there, developing the ability to observe what's happening in your own mind around these things. Diversion, distraction, escapism, leaving, running away, uh, fear-based concern about others, children, self, parents, the world can be a way to avoid dealing with what's going on inside yourself. A lack of trust, separating your life into pieces. I remember working with one woman who, she had a set of friends who were her friends that she would hang out with, and she had people at work that she worked with, but she would never introduce anybody. She would never cross-pollinate anybody from work with friends. She had to keep it separate. Of course, we mentioned earlier obfuscation, creating confusion, playing the victim, being the drama queen or the drama king, distractions in order to create avoidance. Turning to fantasy is another big one, is making up quote unquote facts. It's been popularly called in the culture most recently alternative facts, to justify my conclusion and make it believable to me, and then try to convince others that those so-called alternative facts are true so that they're also convinced and will follow along. So that would be the list of potential things that each time you do this worksheet, we're going to invite you to look through the whole list and become conscious of what's going on. And or, as I say, if you come up with any others that I've missed, please let me know. Then separate out step 7 in the worksheet. You're going to go back, and all the circled behaviors that you see, that you saw your power person doing, you want to, your power person is the person you identified in step 3. You want to then list those behaviors specifically in step 7. So the ones that you circled from that whole list, there are about 75 things in that list. You want to transfer them to step 7, just so you've got a list in front of you, clear. These are the things my power person did. Remember, under stress, ultra stressed, everyone runs the world. Everyone does what their power person did to them that they hated the most. And my offering as to why that is so, and I mean, I verified it over and over and over again when watching somebody under stress. I'll say, how did it feel when your power person did that to you? And they'll usually go into tears and they'll go back to how terrible it was. But why would somebody do that? You'd think, gee, if that was so terrible, I don't want to do terrible things to other people. No, but here's what happens. Usually, again, the power person is a parent in relationship to a child, and the parent is like a god to the child. So when one is stuck, I don't know what to do. What they'll tend to do is unconsciously look through. And when I say look through, I'm talking about holding a goal that acts as a recruiter that resonates unconscious dynamics. It'll look through, when my power person won over me, how did they do it? Oh, they did this terrible thing that I hated. So here I am. Now that's totally hidden, totally unconscious. What we're looking to do is to make the unconscious conscious, as Carl Jung said. So here I'm listing the behaviors that I saw my power person do that I didn't like. And then notice when I do them. Because what happens is one looks through the unconscious, and in essence, it would go something like this. Hey, unconscious, got any advice for me? I don't know what the heck to do here. I'm feeling powerless. It's hopeless. It's helpless. What do I do? Tell you what, check and see. What did my God, my power person, do when this circumstance happened with me and they won? Bingo. That's what the mind prompts. That's what the automatic decision system kicks in and forces one to do. So now you've got a list, and each time you do the worksheet, you'll see different shades, and you'll build brain cells for how that works in terms of your power person, because now you've got each of their behaviors listed in this step. Then step 8, you ask yourself the question, have I ever done any of these power person behaviors and labeled them differently than my label for the behavior when my power person did it? So again, when my power person criticized me, I called it abuse. They didn't trust me. They wouldn't let me have any choices. But when I do that same criticism, well, I'm just trying to help them. That would be an example of how the mind labels it differently and therefore is able to pretend they're not doing what their power person did. And if you're doing that, you want to get conscious of it. So that would be step 8 in the worksheet. And seeing as how we're down to just the last minute, I'm going to put a hold here because we're not going to get through the next one. In the minute we have left, I'm just going to say thank you for joining us, and delighted and honored that you're here. If you have questions relating to this, drop Jeanie a note, JEANIE at WHYagain.org, and I'll integrate that in. I want to stay on track with this worksheet so that we have a contiguous series of shows that we can put together so that anybody who wants to utilize this worksheet, they will be able to take it, put it to work. So